The NBA regular season tips off next week, and we have to discuss the latest trade rumors in the association before the regular season gets started. I'm Nic Rohloff. This is NBA Now by Chat Sports. We're going to focus on Giannis Antetokounmpo, Lauri Markkanen, and Trae Young on today's show. And I mentioned it. The season starts next Tuesday with the defending champions, Oklahoma City Thunder, take on the Houston Rockets. If you're excited for NBA basketball to officially be back, type those me's. I want to do more basketball content here on the channel, and the bosses say we got to have the support from their watchers and viewers, so spam me if you're excited. Let's start with Giannis, because there is a realistic pathway here where the NBA has a top 5 player in the league get traded at the trade deadline in back-to-back years. Last year it was Luka. This year it very well may be Giannis Antetokounmpo. We already know the story about Giannis and the Knicks and how if Antetokounmpo left, he would explore maybe going to the Knicks, and that was really the only team he thought of. And that obviously didn't come to a boiling point to where it happened, but there are a lot of discussions on if Giannis will come to the conclusion throughout the beginning parts of this year that he doesn't want to be in Milwaukee anymore and then get traded before the deadline in early February. Well, ESPN's Brian Windhorst does believe we are heading to that decision. He reported and said there has been an expectation for quite some time that Giannis's days in Milwaukee, one way or another, are numbered. Whether that was going to happen this year, whether it's happened during the season, or whether it could happen during the offseason in 2026. And listen, you can roll the tape back if you really wanted to on multiple channels here at Chat Sports. I was spewing the gospel that he was going to be traded this summer. I truly did believe Giannis was ultimately going to request a trade, especially when you factor in this roster in Milwaukee not looking competitive whatsoever after the Damian Lillard injury, but then they make the last-ditch effort to waive Damian Lillard, sign Miles Turner in an attempt to put a roster around Giannis that he likes and he wants to stay in Milwaukee. But the truth is, this Bucks roster, it just isn't good. They don't have a good guard play. They have Kyle Kuzma as their third best player, and he was bad for them at the end of the last season. Miles Turner can't be a number 2 on a legit contending team in the NBA. Like, how good is Giannis? He's as good as it gets. Is he good enough to carry this sorry team to the finals or deep on a playoff run? No. And with him already questioning if he wants to live in Milwaukee anymore, we know that he wants to go live in Greece again, or at least a big market in the United States. It's like all the signs are pointing to, yeah, this guy's probably going to ask out sooner rather than later. And the Bucks have been doing everything in their power to keep Giannis happy in Milwaukee. And I don't blame them. Is it shameless? Absolutely. But it's what you have to do. They brought back Giannis Antetokounmpo this offseason. Then this past week, they bring in his other brother, Alex Antetokounmpo, on a 2-way deal. Like, they're doing everything they can to make Giannis as happy as possible in his current situation. It is a full-on Hail Mary. We've seen Aaron Rodgers have a lot of successful Hail Marys in that state of Milwaukee, or not state of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You know, it's one of those days, folks. But either way, we've seen Milwaukee and Wisconsin have successful Hail Marys in the past. Maybe they'll have another and ultimately be able to satisfy Giannis Antetokounmpo. But predict it for me. Pin comment on today's show. Will Giannis be a Milwaukee Buck a year from now? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Let me know your thoughts. Listen, I thought he was going to be traded this offseason, so naturally my answer is going to be no. I just have a hard time coming to the realization that he would ultimately stay with Milwaukee throughout this entire year, but then convince himself, yeah, this is the place for me next season as well. The Bucks are going to be at best a 6th seed in the playoffs this season, unless like injuries happen to New York and Cleveland. Like, I just don't see a pathway for them being a legit competitor in the East this season. And to me, I think he's just going to want out because I don't think he wants to live in Milwaukee. I think he wants to compete for a title, and Milwaukee can't really do either of those things. So I think he's out. So if you had to rank the 5 most likely destinations for Giannis, here is how I have them ranked. I think number 1, without a question, is the Knicks. You just have to take that report at face value from Shams that Giannis's team that he thought about the most this offseason was New York. They have decent enough players to offer in a trade, whether it's Cat, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, any combination of those three. They're not going to trade Brunson for him. They'd want to pair those two up. Now, the one thing that could hold them back, I should say, in New York is that they don't really have much draft capital to offer, so it would have to be just a combination of those players. And if you're Milwaukee, yeah, you want to do right by Giannis, and if you request New York specifically, maybe you get that done, but you also have to think about yourself, and you're not really building for the future at all if you trade him to New York. Miami is a place that I think Giannis would be open to playing for. Pat Riley would want to make that trade happen. They could offer a combination of 2 to 3 unprotected first-round picks, as well as young players like Kel'el Ware, Nikola Jovic, and maybe even Tyler Hero, if that could satisfy the Bucks. The Spurs obviously have a boatload of picks and young players that probably have the best package for Giannis, if we're going to be honest. But does Giannis want to play in San Antonio? I don't know. Brooklyn, we know he's thought about that city of New York. They have cap space. They have a bunch of draft capital. And I'll throw the Dallas Mavericks out there. I think Giannis would want to go to a big city. Dallas certainly is that. And the Mavericks can offer up Anthony Davis. They could offer up Cooper Flagg if they wanted to add Giannis to Kyrie and AD. They have draft picks. Not many in the future, but they do have that trump card, which is potentially the next best thing in the NBA of Cooper Flagg. I think those 5 teams are the most likely destinations for Giannis. All right, let's shift over to Lauri Markkanen. Is he on the outside of the future plans for the Utah Jazz? Well, Zach Lowe went on his podcast this past week and said that he can't imagine a scenario where Lauri Markkanen is on the Jazz this time next year. So similar to the question I just asked about Giannis, Zach Lowe asked it and answered it for himself on Markkanen with a resounding no. A guy who just signed a 5-year contract extension with the Utah Jazz. He's got 4 years left on that deal. And after he was traded in the Donovan Mitchell deal from Cleveland to Utah, he flourished for the Jazz, made an all-star game, but had a really down year a season ago, averaging 19 points, his worst year efficiency-wise since his days in Cleveland and Chicago. So Lauri had a bad year under his current extension, and it's interesting to see what his trade value would be. I think teams would be interested in Markkanen, but when you factor in his contract and the fact that he had a bad year last season and can't really stay on the court playing 70 games a year plus, and you haven't seen him do that in the last 4 seasons, you wonder how many teams would be willing to offer a lot for Lauri Markkanen. More coming up on that here in a second. But this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day. The right decisions can get you paid where it's good to be right. And with the season here, it's so simple to play. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you could pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. Want to pick more on Curry points, 3-pointers made, and assists? Well, now you can put all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. Speaking of Mr. Steph Curry, hey, take advantage of this max discount on the season opener Tuesday against the Lakers, half a point. Take the more there, pair that up with another player stat projection, whether it's, or not LeBron, he'll be out for that game, whether it's SGA points, whether it's Kevin Durant points, assists, you can do anything you want. Just download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups, after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Now, when talking more about Lauri Markkanen, he is such an intriguing and fascinating player in the trade market because when you look at him, he has everything that you would want to lead a team. He's 6'11", basically 7 feet. The way he can move off the ball, on the ball, he can knock down threes at that size. It's like, okay, this is what you want as a number 2, maybe even a number 1 on a title team. But he simply has not produced winning basketball in his career, dating back to Chicago, the 1 year in Cleveland, and then the last couple of years in Utah. And you could say, well, the Utah struggles are not his fault, and I would agree to a certain point, but you have to wonder if he's a winning player. And with him getting paid this type of money, where he's under contract for 4 years and making $45 million plus in that final year, reaching 53.5 before becoming a free agent in 2029. Like, you have to, like, come to the realization that, is he a guy that is a top 2 player on a title team? Because this is the simple nature of the NBA now. With the current CBA, you really cannot have 3 players making $45 million plus. It is just really difficult to have the big 3 era in the new CBA and build a roster around them that can win a title. We saw that issue in Phoenix, right? Booker, KD, Beal, all making max money. The rest of the team was absolutely horrible, and it led to their dispersion. So is Markkanen able to be a top 2 guy on a title team with the right roster, or maybe the right number 1 making that money? I don't know if that's the case. But maybe if you have a guy like Luka, a guy like Giannis, an SGA, a top 5 player in the world, yeah, Markkanen might be able to be that number 2. But those teams that I just mentioned already have number 2s and likely aren't going to trade for a guy in Lauri Markkanen. Well, here are 5 destinations where I could see teams piling in for Lauri. Brooklyn, they have the space, they have the picks. They might just want to get a legit guy to drive other people. And if they get Lauri in the building with some draft picks that hit, maybe they start to get on that trajectory. But Detroit's the team that intrigues me the most because you only have one max guy right now. That's Cade Cunningham. Could Cade be a number 1 on a title team? Too early to tell, but he's on that trajectory right now. And with Tobias Harris on an expiring $26 million contract, they need a new 4. They have All-Star Thompson. They have Duncan Robinson. Could they potentially be a team that views Lauri Markkanen as the Robin to Cade Cunningham's Batman? And if they have the right complementary pieces at center with Duren and Isaiah Stewart, All-Star Thompson takes those steps up. Ron Holland off the bench. Well, maybe that's a perfect landing spot for Lauri Markkanen. I think the Heat, Rockets, and Spurs could be interested as well. San Antonio's interesting. Pair him up with Wembanyama. They don't really have a second guy on a big payday right now. Devin Vassell is their second highest paid player. Harrison Barnes, $19 million, comes off the books this season. So the Spurs are certainly in play there. But if you're keeping an eye on a team that could target Lauri Markkanen, I think Detroit is that squad to pair him up with Cade Cunningham. We're going to get to Trae Young here in a second, but if you want more NBA content as the season is officially here, prove it. Subscribe to Chat Sports today. 400,000 plus subscribers here. Continue to growing every single day. Join the family for more NBA, NFL, and college football content. Let's round out the show with some Trae Young rumors because he's been the subject of trade rumors all offseason long, and it only got sparked up some more after some cryptic social media post. On October 14th, so just yesterday, he tweeted out, quote, "It's just business," with a crying, laughing emoji. Now, this could mean a gazillion different things, but I do want to make note, Trae Young has been contract extension eligible, and he has not received that contract extension. And he has been vocal in the past about, well, he's not been happy about not having long-term financial security. So maybe the Hawks just told him, hey, we're going to table those discussions. Remember, this is a new regime in Atlanta. It is not the same regime that drafted Trae Young, so they are not married to the idea of him being their franchise guy. And if I'll be honest, Jalen Johnson looks like the number 1 of the Hawks of the future, and you look at guys up in the up-and-coming like Zachary Sachet, maybe Trae Young becomes a little expendable. And then you factor in this, where Trae Young tweeted out 10-15-25, it's time, period. And at the end of this 15-second video, it's Trae Young and Adam Lefkoe, an exclusive. This was tweeted out yesterday. So if you're watching this on Wednesday afternoon, tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time, Trae Young and Adam Lefkoe are dropping something. Now, what is it? I don't know. It's likely not something real. Some people suggest maybe it's a trade request. I am going to heavily go against that. I do not think it is. My guess, and I talked with producer Coop about this, is similar to LeBron announcing a decision, and it was just a Hennessy ad or a tequila ad, that it's likely going to be a podcast announcement where Trae Young and Adam Lefkoe start a podcast called It's Time. That's my prediction. If I'm right on this, I'll certainly run my victory laps. But let's say it's a trade request. Who could be interested in Trae Young? I don't think many teams are out there, man. I think Chicago, Utah, Sacramento, and Brooklyn feel like the most obvious ones. Brooklyn's going to be on a lot of stars trade lists because they have a lot of picks, a lot of money, and they're looking to revamp that restart. The Kings have been searching for a point guard over the past 6 months, ever since they traded De'Aaron Fox. Signing Russell Westbrook certainly ain't going to be the solution there. Similar to what I mentioned with Markkanen, if they ultimately decide to keep Lauri Markkanen, I think they could look to add a star in Utah potentially. And now, is a Trae Young Markkanen duo going to do anything in the West? Absolutely not. But it could be an intriguing team there. And Chicago, I think, is kind of looking to make a splash move sooner rather than later, potentially. Either way, we know Trae Young is an offensive engine where he's going to give you about 40 points a night, whether it's points or assists. He's a okay three-point shooter. He's a volume guy. The efficiency hasn't been there. And the fact that he's undersized and doesn't defend, and his teams haven't won anything since his first couple years in the league where he took the Hawks to the Eastern Conference Finals, doesn't really make him a desirable trade asset and target, especially when you'd have to extend him after making a deal for him. So I find it hard to believe there would be a robust market for Trae Young, but you certainly never know. That'll do it for this episode of NBA Now by Chat Sports. Appreciate everybody watching. If you haven't already, join the channel and subscribe for daily sports content.